Hi, a little bit before Christmas I evaluated a board from Atmel. It was the SAMA5D4 Xplained, and to be honest it was a little disappointing to say the least. Not because of the capabilities of the board but because of the support. It came with Yocto Polki distro OS on the board, but the support and the material that seemed to be available to try and get things done seemed to be very Spartan, and basically all of the road testers were unable to get anything beyond the basic Linux up and running to have a look at, never mind get the LCD display working as a console or get any of the demos that seem to be getting shown on the videos up and running. So, you know, this is not even thinking about getting analog inputs and I2C control working and stuff like that. Anyway, that one didn't go too well, but now Element 14 are running a road test for the new version of the board, which is the SAMA5D4. This is a more advanced processor. It's got a few extra capabilities, and basically it's the next generation that's come out from the Atmel stable. So I have one of them in my hands. I'm not actually doing the road test with Element 14, but I have one to look at and try and get a few things working on it to try and help the road testers. But also I thought that other people, of course, may be buying this through their various sources, either from Element 14 or via other places, and they may be having difficulties getting this thing up and running, trying to find the right support material and things like that. So my endeavor here is to try and well, smooth that over, get a few things up and running, show you how to use it, and get you on your way to actually writing and implementing your own application. So to that end, what I'm going to do is show you how to use the basic board, how to upload software to it, a little experiment using a couple of I2C chips that we can just plug in, using the analog inputs on the board, and a few other things that we can play with. Anyway, the board's capable of HDMI out, and it's also got the LCD interface, which was common to the SAMD3 board as well, and I'll show you how you can get that up and running too. Now, there are a few nuances with it. There are only certain LCD boards that are supported out of the box, and I've been lucky enough to have one of them. So I will go through the process anyway of getting those working. Some of the LCD displays, or one particular, the one I have, had to have a whole boatload of SMD resistors moved because the board by default comes ready to run on a SAM5D3 board, and the SAM5D4 LCD interface, the pinouts are a little bit different, so that's why the display has all of these resistor jumpers that you have to move in order to make it compatible. So without further ado, let's go and have a look at the board. So this is the board. I've got it hooked up to a few things so that I can show you different parts of it working and how to interface it to stuff. Apologize, it's upside down, but it's just the way that the layout works to get the videoing done, but also be able to have everything hooked up to it. What we've got, basic tool around the board, of course, is here we have the Ethernet connection, we've got the HDMI output, we've got USB ports, you've got your standard Arduino compatible headers here, you've got your LCD interface firing off the side here, and you've got your debug port, which I have hooked up to my tablet, and you've got your power input. You've got the normal USB input that you can also use as a console, and you have a debug input which allows you to upload software and things like that. You can actually upload software and do things on both, but the top one is actually using a USB to serial port that also allows you to hook into the debug input on the chip so that you can actually monitor boot up and things like that. There is a battery socket here, but it doesn't come with one, and it's to maintain the real-time clock and things when you power it down. I haven't tried anything with that yet. And one of the most important jumpers on the board is actually over here, which is used to get it into programming mode. So you put the jumper on when you reset or power up, and it'll actually sit there now waiting for an upload to the flash. And once you've powered it up, you remove the jumper back to its broken condition, which is, you know, I've only got the jumper sitting on one pin here, it's not shorting anything else out, and in that mode you can then upload, and then when you restart it's basically its normal operation. All right, the blue light that's flashing is just basically says that it's accessing the SSD on board, and then you've got a couple of status lights for power. That's pretty much the main walk through the board. I think the main difference between this and the SAMA5D4 is that the D3 had no HDMI output, and it had 2 Ethernets on, so they've given up the board space for the HDMI out. So what's the first thing we're going to do with this? Well, we're going to power it up, and we're going to just have a look at the software that you can get downloaded for this thing. Now, there's some quirks to this in that if you go to the SAM website, which is the www.at91.com/Linux for SAM, you'll find some software there, but it really doesn't give you the full extent of what you need to play with this board, and depending on what kind of LCD display and things you've got. So there's actually an FTP site that Atmel also have that has a greater range of images that you can use in demos that can show off the board. So I will link those in when I do the blog post, but I'll also show you them in a second on my tablet so that you can see. So anyway, that's the board. Let's get some software up and I can show you what's happening on the screen with a terminal. So what we're looking here right now is the Linux for SAM website that's supported by Atmel. It's at www.at91.com. If you select Linux for SAM, and what you'll do is in here on the left hand side, you'll see that there is a section for the SAMA5D4 Xplained, which is what I've already clicked on here. I'll just go in it again just to help you out there. And what it does is it contains a whole bunch of information regarding the SAM board, including the boot sequence, a little bit about the hardware that's on it, as well as nearer the bottom some files that you can download for various demos. So these actually cover the D3 and things as well. It's common to all of them, and the one that we're interested in at the very top is the SAMA5D4 Xplained. There's a image here which is the SAM4 Pokey Xplained 4.6.zip. Now that's all well and good, but it doesn't have in it support for any of the LCD displays or the HDMI. So if you download this one and load it in, you'll only have the ability to run the basic board without any screens directly connected to it. So you'll be running under the SSH or terminal session through the debug port. Now, what there is a I'll show you the download for where you can actually get the better stuff in a moment. But one thing that you do need while you're here is actually to have the Samba software so that you can actually upload to the board. So if you go into Samba, there's a whole bunch of different ones you can pick. It's for Windows, for Linux, and various other ones. Now I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download it again. And I've just got to quickly install it on here because I've never done it yet on this board. So if I bring up my folder, I have it here. SAMA214 right now is the latest version, and you want that for this board. So we'll start that running, and we'll just say yes to continue the install. All right, and just say next, agree to that, next. We'll just wait for that to finish installing, and we're done. Hit next. Put something on the desktop. Alright, so let's go look at the desktop. Okay, so it should have put something on the desktop for me for this right here. So SAMA214. So if you load that up, it should. I've got the board actually plugged in. It's not in debug mode. So if I actually say OK at the moment, if I tell it to connect, it's probably going to give me an error because I don't have it in debug mode. So on the board, remember what I said, when you power it up, if you have the jumper connected, which I'm just going to put that jumper on right now. This is all in the instructions for the board how to do this, and I'm going to link them all in, but I've just reset the board. And once you've reset the board, you can pretty much straight away remove the jumper again. And now when I connect, I should be able to run Samba this time and actually get some proper acknowledgement, but I'm not, so. Sorry, I forgot one thing. Once you load the Samba drivers, you've got to install the USB driver port for the debug as well, so we're just going to do that now. So it actually comes up with the BOSA program port, and we just got to go in here, change the drivers. So we'll update the driver software. To do, let's have it use a disk instead of the other one, so it doesn't automatically put the same driver in. So the AT91 USB to serial converter is what we actually want to have. So we'll tell it to install that. And that's done successfully. Alright, now hopefully that will let us pick up on it. The board is still in its mode waiting for Samba to connect. So let's see if that allows us to connect now. So it's picking it up on COM7. Now make sure you have the right board selected. So SAMA5D4 EK is the one we actually want to use here. We click connect. So now that's connected. If you don't get a screen like this, then you know it hasn't connected properly. It usually comes back with an error. If it actually comes back and gives you this screen, then you can be pretty confident that it has actually connected correctly. So this is just a verification. The way that the uploads actually work is you just have to run a batch file to do the install. So now that we've done this, we'll just close out of it. That verifies that everything is ready for the software upload. Okay, so the first thing we have to do once you've downloaded the software, and what I've just done is downloaded the one that I had showed you from the main page, which is on the at91.com Linux for SAM page, and it's the one at the top for the SAM5D4. This is the default one that you're led to when you start out with this. And if I go into this here, I'll show you exactly what I mean. All right, you've got a number of different files here, but there's only one batch file, and in the instructions on the site it tells you about running the right batch file for the board that you've got and what display you've got in it. And if you look here, the only thing you've got here, there is an HDMI and there is a PDA4, which is for the 4.3-inch LCD display, as well as an image for a board without any displays at all. The problem is there's only one batch file, and unless you know what you're doing, it's not easy to modify that batch file correctly, because you've not only got to modify the batch file, you also have to modify these other files that end with TCL. Like then there's only one of them, which is for NAND flash right now. So Atmel kindly sent me some instructions on how to do this, and I actually did that for one of them. But what I've actually subsequently found is a site with the different files on are ready to go as well. So what I'm going to do is load this one up first just to show you what happens. So my board is already ready for download, so I should be able to just run the batch file. And this one would be without anything except the basic board. So it'll come up like this. And what's happening now is it's going to be uploading to the board. You can actually have a separate putty connected to a serial port, and it'll show you the upload as it's happening. But for now, I don't have that, so we'll just be patiently waiting. And after a little while, it'll come up with a notepad log dump to tell you what the status of the upload was. And there we have it. So if you just scroll to the bottom, the most important thing here when you go to the bottom of the file is it should say that it's done and completed. All right, so right at the very bottom there it says complete 99%, and it's got done, so we know everything went in okay. So we can just close that file. And now if I just hit the restart on the board, which I've just done, and let me just load up a putty or something on here. Oh, I got something called Terraterm. That will work just fine for us instead. So we will connect through a serial port, and we'll pick the COM6 USB serial. Helps if I put the right baud rate on, of course. 115K2. And there we have it. So now it's prompting me for a log on. Let me just hit the reset again so you can see the whole sequence that comes up. Alright, so this is your standard Linux boot up. Now I have a display hooked up, the 4.3 inch LCD right now, to the board, and as you can see it's not doing anything at all basically, because there's nothing to configure it and run it. So it's just going to sit there with the backlight on, and that's pretty much it. So if I come over here, and now I can log in. There's no password, just type in root for the username and it will let you straight in. Now I can just do the standard Linux commands, right? So you can see what's running, etc., 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 which is great, and you can do a few things from here. You do have, like, a GCC compiler is available, Python is installed, and a whole bunch of other things. And if you look at the instructions that come with the board, it will tell you a few things that you can do there, and you can also go to the Polkey Octo website as well. And I have a whole bunch of notes that I'm going to go through as we go through things here, but I wanted to just show you what that took to upload that. Now I'm immediately now going to jump to loading another one, and I want to load up one that actually handles a 4.3 inch LCD display. So if we just go back to the batch files here right now, this is the one I've just expanded off the main site, but of course that's not going to help us very much. But I have downloaded some other ones here. In the HDMI one, I actually created a PDA.4. So this one I found, actually somebody in the Element 14 community linked it into the road test site, and when I downloaded it, it was a bit like the one I just showed you, where it only had the drivers for the standard board without any displays hooked up to it. In this case, it came down and was configured for driving the HDMI, and I happen to have an HDMI screen hooked up to this. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to reset the board, ready to take another upload, and we'll just upload the HDMI version. If I show you right now on my screen, you'll see that there's actually nothing on it yet, because there's nothing, you know, the drivers have not been loaded up, so it just won't do anything. So let's just run this one. If I just reset the board, what it does is when you do this, it comes up and just says reboot on the bottom, and it will just sit there because it's waiting for an upload. So if I just change the jumper back off, because you put it on to get it into this mode, then you immediately take it off so that it can allow the upload to happen. And I will click on the HDMI.bat in this case and run that, and you can see in the background now, this time, if I just move this out the way, because I've got the terminal connected, it's showing you the upload that's in progress. Of course, it's just flying past the screen here, so it's hard to see what's going on, but it does give you assurances that things are working properly. Okay, just quickly check the bottom of the file, make sure it says done, and it is completed quite happily. So what I'm going to do is, I haven't rebooted yet, I'm just going to point the camera up to the HDMI screen, which is turned on, and as you can see there's nothing on it at the moment, but I'm now going to hit the reset on the board. As you can see, my standby light's gone off on the HDMI screen, and the board is still powering up. It's not driving the console to the screen. That's one of the things I found that it doesn't do, is still use it as a console, but I'm sure that's a minor thing for any of you Linux aficionados to get up and running, because what it will do is it will break straight into a demo on the top screen. It'll start playing a video and things. Now I haven't played too much with this one yet because I haven't got mouse and keyboard up and running to use anything else, but there it is, coming straight into one of the demos that is part of that HDMI output. So let me just let that run for you. So you can see it drives the HDMI pretty well. The color's pretty good. No stuttering or anything at all on it. And that's pretty much the video when it starts doing it on a loop. So I'm going to turn the screen off just so that we don't get annoyed by all the noise and we can continue with this. So just turn that off for a second. Now back down on the computer screen here, you'll see that it's actually still, even though it's running on that large one, it's still running quite happily here with the console just sitting there for the log on. So you just go root, and basically here it's exactly the same as it was before. The only difference is now it's running that HDMI screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to repeat the cycle again. This time I'm going to pick the 4.3 inch LCD display version, which is the one I edited, and I will provide the instructions that I got from Atmel on how to edit those files, and also provide the 4.3 inch TCL and batch file as well, so that you can just use it right off the bat without having to educate yourself as well. I mean, by all means go and do that, but just save you a bit of time and hassle if you want. Let's just reset this. So it's now waiting for an upload. Alright, so if I now just close this, and I'll pick this time the one that I modified for the PDA4.bat on here, and that's now going to upload that file. So we'll give that a few moments to upload. Alright, there's that one done. Now theoretically this one should be driving the 4.3 inch display. Now I have done this before, and I happen to know that there is what appears to be a size issue. So if we go down to this display, I haven't reset the computer yet, and I'm going to hit reset now, so it should come up with that little logo again, and then basically it's going to go through the same process as it did before, where the console is not over there. So you notice this time it didn't go white and fade away because the drivers are actually being loaded up onto it correctly this time. The computer is busy booting up, and I've got the prompting on the left hand side, and very shortly it should complete loading and start putting up a demo screen onto that console over there. Okay, that's the logon prompt coming in with root. The demos are actually they're shell script files to get them working, and they're in the op directory. So if I just go cd / opt and do an ls, so we have a number of different folders here. We've got an application launcher, a home automation, smart refrigerator, etc., etc. So if I go into the application launcher, and what I have in here is a launch.sh, application launcher.sh file. So if you just type in /bin/sh space application launcher.sh and hit run, it should launch something up on the LCD. There we go. So as you can see, it's actually brought it up, but you can see it doesn't actually fit very well. So what that tells me is it's not actually meant for this size screen. And the other thing I think I found was the touch screen doesn't respond. So it's not really, I don't think, meant for this LCD display. But you can see that the basic driver is actually working there. So I'm just going to power off the board because I'm going to unplug the LCD and everything. And what I have is this larger 7-inch, which has got this touch panel on the side of it, and the whole screen of course is a touch panel. And this one's driven off its own separate supply, but I've got to disconnect it from here. So let's just pull this one out. This one actually gets powered directly from the connectors. This one has its own supply because it's a much bigger board, so it draws too much directly out of. Plug this in, it's powered off right now. There's a couple of lights on, I think that's just from the serial port, bleeding a little bit of voltage in there from the TTL inputs, but let's just get this in here, clamp it down. Okay, let's power up the LCD display. That's that powered up. Now we can power up the Atmel board again. Now this is not going to do much with the LCD here because obviously the drivers are not working, so it's just going to do something horrible like that with it. But what I will do now is I'm going again reset this with the jumpers. So I put the jumper on the board, hit reset. That's now waiting for the boot, and I'm going to now run the PDA7 software. Alright, that's busy uploading now, so we'll just give that a second to get uploaded. Okay, software is now loaded up. I will now hit the reset button because the jumper's back in its run position. And we'll see what happens this time. Well, there's the logo right back up, so that's a good sign that the driver's in there. The computer is booting up on the left hand, sorry, on my terminal on my laptop. So I won't bore you with the details of that again. We'll just wait for it to come up. Alright, so the first thing it's done is it's come up with a touch crosshair calibration screen. So I need to see if I can see where that touch crosshair actually is. Well, apparently one of the devices I had connected for a later experiment to show you guys was interfering with the touchscreen. So I actually just disconnected a couple of them, which was the I2C bus connections and the analog inputs, and now the touchscreen seems to be behaving itself. So I haven't investigated as to exact cause yet, but suffice to say there was something misbehaving anyway. So now if I go in here and I guess my wrong different kind of pen, so let's touch there, touch here, touch there, and touch here, and then the center one, and that should be done. Good. And now it's come up with that, and things now seem to be behaving themselves correctly. So that's now got the 7.7-inch screen up and running. If I just pick on one of these, like home automation, you'll see the touchscreen is working nicely. That brings me up the home automation demonstration screen. I'll touch on climate. It's now showing me, this is all pretend, it's not actually hooked into anything. So you can see I can quite nicely change this dial. Setting temperatures. Humidify, change the humidity percentage. Cooling. Fan. Off. And auto. So that all now seems to be working a little bit better. Second floor, basement, main floor. Click on the house logo. Bit lighting. Anyway, these are not hooked up to anything, as I say. They're just a rolling demo. If I just zoom out a little bit. On the buttons here, if you hit K1, it takes you back to the main screen. So if we hit the video player, that's going to bring up one of the videos that we saw working a moment ago on the HDMI screen. So of course no sound on these video cards because I don't have any audio directly on the SAMA5D4 board. But it is quite happily playing the video anyway. So if I just escape from that. Smart refrigerators. These are just a whole bunch of different demo applications that they've loaded up here. And Epicurious. It's just nice touch screen demonstration. It's working quite well. I think I need to do some video with it. I just want to show you that it's working properly. Web browser. I have an internet connection on this thing. That's all you have to looking at. Showing your browser, what the browser is. But if I go up here, I'll set my URL. Again. Yep. So for the keyboard control, let's go Google something. Doesn't have much repeat, but this thing is HTTP. So we're going to use the iPhone's tabs, then use this. www.google.com. And there's a Google page up. So we go here. So, okay, it's not done. I have a keyboard for that, so go ahead and stop that. You can see it's a vertical demonstration, and it's not down there, just random things. Yep. So anyway, I think that pretty much completes the demonstration for the various video cards. HDMI 4.3-inch display, as we could see, it didn't work too well. And here with the 7-inch display. This is the, and yeah, it's the TM7000. So it's not an inexpensive LCD display, but it is a good quality one, and it does work quite well on this board. Now, as we noticed before, it does seem to have some level of interference with some of the circuitry that's on the board. I'm not sure what that is caused by. Let me just quickly go back to here a second and just try plugging in the analogs that I had connected back in and see if that's enough to interfere with it working. And if I hook up my SPI bus again, sorry, I2C bus connections, okay, that's those done again, and see if that interferes with anything. Yeah, that's the one that's done it. So obviously the SPI bus I've hooked in. I've got a chip here. I think maybe it's, you know, it might be that chip that's interfering. Let me just, they might be using one of these on the board. It's a port expander. So anyway, I'll do some experimenting later on. I'm not going to waste your time right now trying to figure it out, but there's definitely an issue with the I2C bus interfering with things. So if I take that back out again, yeah, it's immediately started working again. And if I put it right back in, it'll immediately probably kill it. That's the side button, which I think is a little different. Yeah, that's killed it again. So that's pretty much confirmation that it is the I2C that's interfering there. Yep. Anyway, alright, so I'm going to make another video, not tonight because it's getting late. But tomorrow night I will put up another video once I've recorded it, covering off how to use the I2C and the analog inputs and outputs. Sorry, there are no analog outputs, but digital I/O lines and things on the board. I will hook up a 16-bit digital to analog converter and a 8-bit port expander on the I2C bus and show you how to use them. All the capabilities are there built into the default OS, so it shouldn't be an issue. And I believe that is with any of the images that you might choose to load up to it.